This is Phil Masters. On this episode, we're recreating the Doctor Strange's effect in Photoshop, and then we'll be going straight into After Effects to animate it so you can use it for your own videos, or we'll be jumping into Photoshop with an image and I'll be showing you how to apply the effect as if it's a still image so that you can do your own photos. Let's get into the tutorial.
So this is what the end result is going to look like in what we're creating for Doctor Strange's shield effect in Photoshop. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to set up a brand new project. So let's go to File and New. I want the width and the height to be exactly the same. So in this situation, we're going to make sure it's 2000 and I'm going to leave it at 8 bits and it's going to be RGB color and select OK. I'm going to go down, make sure that we've got pure black selected, select OK on that and use the paint bucket tool to make sure that our background is pure black. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to make sure that all of our elements snap to the center so that when we're starting to animate them, we don't get a wobble. So we're going to go up and we're going to go up to View and make sure that Snap is selected. So therefore that our elements will snap to the center or to the sides and so forth. Now I'm going to come over here to the first shape and I'm going to select the Ellipse tool. And I'm going to come up to the top, make sure that Fill has got the line through it, which means that there's going to be nothing coloring in the center. And I'm going to make sure that our stroke color is white. I want to adjust the width of it, so I'll bring it down to say about close to 10. And I'm going to make sure that we're using the solid line. I'm not going to use the dash or the dots, just the solid line. And then I'm going to hold the shift down on my keyboard, which will keep the perspective of our circle as we're putting it into perspective. And there we have our first element. So what we're going to do is we're going to center the element now. So I'm holding the shift button down to do that. And it will snap to the center. Like so. Now let's press Ctrl T and we'll start to rotate the circle. And as you can see, the measurements in between the sides and all the edges appear to be in the center. So I'm happy with that. So now that we've done the very first shape, I'm going to come over here to the layers window now. I just want to show you something. Now I'm just going to make the background disappear. So you can see we've got our round shape and it's transparent in the center. But one thing you'll notice over here is it's still editable. Now to fix this up, every time we do a shape and we don't want to play around with it anymore, we'll simply go up to Layer and come down to Raster Size and select Shape. Now, as you can see, once I've done that, it's no longer editable and it's ready to be used on our layers. So this is our very first layer. Now in the magic effect that I did in the earlier tutorial, I've made a few rings and then we've had the text animated. So what we're going to do is we're going to build first of all the template for the effect. And then we're going to be putting all the other elements in that will be animating. So let's hold the layer that we're going to be working on, which is Ellipse 1. Press Ctrl J, and that will duplicate the layer. Now press Ctrl T on it to allow us to go in there and resize it. And hit Enter once we're happy with it. Now, as you can see, it will snap in to the center. Now you'll see that there's a line there that appears. This is saying that it is connected and it's in line with the other element that's below it. So if I move it up to the center, you can see a line appears and it's telling me the closer I get to the center and it snaps in. And therefore this means that it's exactly the same measurement here as it is here, as it is here, and so forth. And that's all because we went up to View and made sure that snap was selected. Now, another thing you could do is come down here to go to Snap To and adjust where you want it to snap to. Now, as default, it automatically snaps to the guides and layers and the document bounds, and that's exactly what we would like to do. So just leave it as default. Now that we've done that, let's duplicate it again. So Control J, Control T to resize it. And once I'm happy where I'm putting it, which is in the center there, I just simply hit Enter. Now, if you want to resize it manually, all you have to do is simply go up and go Edit, go to Transform, and go to Scale. And as you can see, that will come up. But again, the shortcut for that is simply Control T. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do one more circle. Let's press Control J once more. Let's go Control T to resize it. And we're going to drag this down a little bit more and put it right in the center. Like so. Once you're happy with that, and I'm happy with the way it's looking at the moment, I'm just going to grab all these layers and select them all. So I'm holding the shift button down to select them all. Select the top one and then hold shift down, select the bottom. Then I'm going to press Control E. Now Control E will allow us to put all the layers into one. Now if I press Control Z that once, the manual way to do that is simply go up to Layer and Merge Layers. Now the reason I did that is because now that these layers, even if these are animated, you won't see these moving because of the fact that they're locked in the center. So if I press Control T now and rotate it, you can see there's no wobble in the actual elements. And that's what we're after. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some information in here and we're going to make up our magic wheel. Now the thing is, we're going to use some text and we're also going to be using some drawing so we can try and make it look as close as possible. So first of all, let's put some text on the inner circle here, right in the middle. Now in the effect itself in the movie, it looks like what appears to be some sort of magical writing that's in there, but we're going to be just simply using different types of font to replicate that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some text now around our shield effect. And there's two ways of doing that. I'll show you the hard way first. Now the reason I'm doing that is because it's a mistake that's made by a lot of people. And what they do is they go up to the text tool over here and I'll just make the text area about this long. And I'm just going to change it to white to make sure that the text is white. I'm going to just put some text in there, just as an example. Now what they normally do is they'll come up here and they'll select the warp text feature and they'll generally go to arch and then they'll bump it up to 100 on the bend and then they'll select OK. Now once they've done that, one thing you'll notice first of all, now if I'll just shrink it down so it fits onto the screen, is that it's not exactly 100% perfect. As you can see, it looks good here. It starts to drain away from the line and then roll around. Now you can fix it by using some of the tools to bend the text and morph it and put it into place. However, there's a better way of doing it and I'm going to show you how to do it. So first of all, let's just delete that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a brand new layer. So let's go down and select a brand new layer first of all. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use this tool over here, which is the ellipse tool. And I'll select that and you can see there's different options here. But before we use the tool, we're going to come up to this drop down box from shape and we're going to change it to path. Once we've changed it to path, I'm going to hold the shift button down and I'm just going to draw the circle on the new layer. And once I'm happy with it, I'm just going to release it like so. Now, one thing we're going to be doing next is going over to our text tool. And I'm going to bring the text tool onto the line. Now, what you'll notice, it'll go from the little text box. And when I put it over our ellipse tool, you'll see a little wave appears. When that happens, select and you'll see the circle disappears. Now watch something. I'm going to start writing. What we could do is just write Film Masters and we'll just keep on continuously writing that and you'll see what happens. And as you can see, it continuously rolls around. I'm just going to copy that text now and go to the end of it and paste it and paste it and paste it. And I might just write Film Masters once more, and I might just put a few different shapes in there. Now, once I've done that, as you can see, we've made a nice, perfect round circle, and the text is perfectly going around it. So once I've done that, so I'm going to select the text. Now, when you select the text, if I try to go too far around, watch what happens. It jumps. So we're going to select one side first, and we're going to come up here and we're going to change the font. Now I want something that's running writing, so I might use Mistral. And I'm going to change this one over here to Mistral also. And keeping it on Mistral, let's just write a few more film masters in there. Like so. Now the reason I did running writing is because one, you can't really tell what it is that's written in there. It could be some sort of magic spell, for example. So once I've done that, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to have the layer. I'm going to select a brand new layer. And to make it so that we can edit this, I'm going to select the top layer and the text that we've just done and press Control E. Now by pressing Control E, it now turns it into one layer, which we can move around and put it into position. Now I'm just going to call this inner text. Now the reason I'm calling it inner text is because not only will we be making this so you can use it in Photoshop, but if we want to animate it a little bit later on in After Effects, like I've done in one of the tutorials that you've seen already, then obviously you can set it up this way. So you don't have to write film masters in there. You can write whatever you want. You can put spells in there if you want. Again, this is just simply showing you how to do the tutorial. Now I'm happy with where that text is sitting. However, I want to bring it in here to the inner circle. So let's just press Control T and I'm just going to shrink it down. Just grabbing the corners and bringing it in. And then pressing enter on my computer. And when I'm happy with it, like I am, I'll leave it there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some text around the outside. We're going to do the same process again. So I'm going to come down and select a brand new layer. And then I'm going to come over here to the ellipse tool. And holding the shift button down, I'm going to make a circle. And once I've done that, I'm going to come over here to the text tool. And I'm going to make it so it makes that little wave. So not the text, but the wave on the line. And we're going to be putting some other text in here. So we're just going to put random text, just anything at all, doesn't matter. Just fill it up. And we're going to now come down here and we're going to make a brand new layer, selecting both those two layers, pressing Control E, brings them together. I'm going to come up to the move tool now and we're just going to bring it and Control T and resize it, holding the shift button down and putting it into position. Now again, there's a reason why I'm making sure that all the text is white. If we start making colors at the moment, it won't be able to, we won't be able to make a glow on the actual effect that we're putting together. So everything has to be white. And that's because of the different types of transparencies that we will be using in this effect. So I've done that. I'm going to call this outer text. Now you didn't have to use the same font. We could have done different shapes and so forth and mixed it up a little bit. I'm just going to leave it as squiggly lines. Again, you could have changed the font to different shapes, but yeah, we're not going to do that. Next thing we're going to be doing with this effect is we know from the movie there is this type of ruin images in here. So we're going to be freehanding these ruins in this circle. So what I'm going to do, again, come down and we're going to select a brand new layer and I'm going to call this ruins. And ruins, I don't know if that's the right way of spelling it. I do know they're called ruins, but if it's spelled the wrong way, feel free to let me know in the comments section. Okay, so next thing we're going to do, now that we've got ruins selected, we're going to come in here and we're going to be making some ruin drawings. So again, we make sure white is selected. I'm going to go up to the paintbrush tool now, select the paintbrush, and I'm going to right click and make sure it's a solid. So we make sure it's not feathered, we want a solid line. So I'm selecting that. And what we're going to do is just going to use the open and close brackets to adjust the size of our workspace in the brush or the brush tip. So I'm going to make the circles of around about that big. And then I'm going to come through and just start drawing or putting some dots in there. Just some random ones. And we're going to fill up this whole part of the circle with them. Now, one thing I would probably suggest is don't put too many too close together, because if you make it too detailed, you may start losing some of the effect. So I'm making different ones. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be joining the dots together, and that will give us that classic look of the ruins that you see in the movie and in the trailer for Doctor Strange. Now this is exactly how I made my original Doctor Strange disc effect that has been uploaded onto YouTube about a month ago now when the teaser first came out. And obviously there's a few people that are really interested in it and are using that tutorial in After Effects. So that's great, but I'm showing you how to do this so that you can actually make your own unique one and, you know, put your own text and so forth in there. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to press the Z on my keyboard and I'm going to zoom in to the effect. And I'm going to press B, which is actually the shortcut for brush. So you press B on your keyboard. And I'm going to use the open and close brackets on my keyboard again to make the circle that I'm using for the brush tip smaller than the original dots. The reason I'm doing that is because now I'm going to select the dot, making sure that the ruins layer is selected. So I'm going to put one click in and holding the shift button down, moving to the next dot, a line appears. So this is how we make a line from one dot to the next. And we can bring it down. And again, we're just joining the dots, bringing them up to the sides to make them look unique. And we're just going to keep on going around the circle. Now, one thing I'm doing, if I press the spacebar, you can see the hand appears. And that means when I press the spacebar and hold it, I can move around my workspace. So if I zoom right in by pressing Z or holding the Alt button down to zoom back out, pressing B for my brush, and I can press and hold the spacebar allows me to move around the work area. And that allows us to work in Photoshop a lot quicker. Now, we don't want to leave any dots by themselves. We want to make sure that all our dots that we've got have got a line going to them. And I'm just making this quite random, and it gives us that look. We might just bring that there. Well, it's going to remove that. I've made a mistake, so holding Control down, pressing Z once will remove that. Now, I've covered this before in some of my other Photoshop tutorials, but if you make a mistake and press Control Z once and then Control Z again, you'll notice all it does is it simply puts the effect back in again. So to keep on going backwards, you have to press Control, Alt, and Z, and holding Control, Alt down will allow you to keep going backwards. And then you can go forwards by pressing Control Z again. So that's just a little shortcut. Some people I know, when I very first started using Photoshop over 10 years ago, it was one of the very first things that did my head in. I couldn't go backwards. I didn't know why. And it wasn't until I figured it out by going to the Adobe's web forum that they had at the time, which they still have, but it's up to probably a different generation now. But that is how I figured it out. So I'm going to join these across. Now you can make the circles smaller. You can make the lines thinner if you want. I'm just making them a little bit more chunkier for this tutorial so you can see what I'm doing. And it's about you guys. So it's not really about me creating this so I can use it. It is so you can see how it's done. And then you just can wow everyone with your own effects. I can see a lot of guys and girls putting together our tutorials and effects on YouTube, and it's great to see it. I get a bit of a kick out of it, so that's great. So once we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some squares in here to finish the disc off, and then we're going to start doing some compositing work in just an image of myself holding the discs. I urge you guys to go out there and take some photos of yourself for this tutorial. And again, once we've saved this, I'm going to show you how to save it ready for After Effects, so that you can go into After Effects a little bit later on in another tutorial or in your own time, and check out my other tutorial on this, how we put it together and composite it into After Effects if you want to put it onto a video. So we're going to be putting some squares in here now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to first of all come over here again, and I'm going to select the rectangle tool. I'm going to change path back to shape, and we're going to be making some changes up here. So under fill, we want the box with the line through it, which means that there is no fill. Now fill means that there's something filling the inside of the shape. So we're not going to be using that. So let's make sure there's a line through it. And we've got the stroke set as white. We want it to be that white color. And then we're going to adjust the width of the square. So we're going to leave it at the original circumference of what the other discs were. So that's around 1073. Let's just make it 10. And we want the line as solid. Once you've done that, we're going to draw our squares in this area here. So again, holding the shift button down to keep perspective. So as you can see, one square has been drawn. It has automatically put itself nice in our circle area. So I'm going to press V on my keyboard, or the move tool up here. And as you can see, we've got our rectangle selected. Now, what I'm going to do is there's this little box in there, and that's because it's got a layer thumb in it. I want to get rid of that. So I want to go up to layer, and I want to come down to raster size and this shape. And as you can see, once I've done that, I can now edit, change colors and so forth if I want to. So now that we've done that, let's press Control J to duplicate, Control T on the keyboard to then allow us, holding the shift button, to rotate our square. And then press enter. And as you see, we've already created this nice little shape in the center. And that's just using those two squares. And we're going to now bring those, or actually we'll leave those squares separate. So square 2, and just going to call that square 1. Excellent. Now, if I select both of them, press Control T, you can see I can rotate these in the center of our effect. And that's great, because the reason is when I spin it, you'll see that everything will spin nicely in After Effects. I'm just going to press enter so I can lock that back in again. And I've made it separate layers. Now you can join them together by selecting them both, holding the shift button down and pressing Control E. Now, if I did that, it would then mean that that one element moves by itself. So depending on what you want to do, in After Effects, you may want to speed one up a little bit quicker than the other to give it a little bit different depth of the effect. I'd probably suggest that. But if you want to make it an easier tutorial, sure, join the two layers together. I'm going to keep them separate for the time being though. Now we're going to be making a little design in the center, and that will finish off our disc or our shield for Doctor Strange's effect. So using the same tool, we're going to come over here to our rectangle tool and making sure that's selected. And I'm going to hold the shift button down and just go and draw a square. And press V to move it around so it's centered. And once I've done that, I'm going to duplicate that, holding the control down and pressing J. Again, you can go up to edit, copy, and then copy, paste if you want to do that, but that's just a shorter way. Control T to allow us to rotate, and Control J again just to duplicate the layer. Control T will allow us to spin it around once more. And I'm going to do it once more. Control J to duplicate, Control T to allow us to rotate the shape. And I'm going to come up here and select the move tool and apply. So we've done that nice effect that you see in the center of the disc. Now it's just a matter of joining these all together now so that they all are one element. So holding the top layer and holding the shift button down, hitting the bottom layer that you want to join together. Control E will merge them together, or we go up to layer, merge shapes. Now, once we've done that, you'll see it's trimmed a lot of the inside, which is great, gives us this nice looking effect. Let's zoom in, have a look at that. And I'm happy with that. You can go in and delete that if you want. But if we go up to layer and we're going to rasterize, and we're going to rasterize the shape, you'll see it disappears and we get this really nice look in the center. And if you didn't want to do that, it's fine. Just leave it as it is. You get that nice detail around the sides. So that's our effect. It's now completed. If you want to save it out for After Effects, leave it exactly the way it is. I might want to just call this center bit center wheel. So once we've done that, we're going to go up and we're going to go up to File, Save As, and I'm just going to save it as a PSD Photoshop file. I'm calling it Making Magic. I'm just going to save it on the desktop. Now that the PSD's been saved for After Effects, we're now going to save a JPEG file ready to go for Photoshop. So let's go File, Save As. I'm going to call it the same file name, find JPEG, select that, select Save and the location where you want to save it. Now, with the image quality, we're going to leave it as maximum. Now, you can use the slider here by adjusting it, or the drop down, obviously. We want it maximum at 12, leave it as progressive, and select OK. And that's it. That's how we do our Doctor Strange's disc or shield effect in Photoshop, ready for outputting into After Effects or into Photoshop to create your own element for your own Photoshop picture. Now that we've made the Doctor Strange's effect, you can select video 1 to go to After Effects and learn the tutorial on how to animate the element for your videos, or select the other video so that you can learn how to incorporate what we've created into Photoshop into an image.